Listen to this. What if I told you that while South Africans are debating border control and the influx of undocumented immigrants, our very own president, Cyril Ramaphosa, was secretly flying in a military chopper, rubbing shoulders with the exact same Zimbabwean tender magnates whose corruption is forcing people across the Limpopo River? I'm talking about a closed-door, highly classified meeting at a private farm in Kwekwe. No official state protocol, no foreign affairs ministers, just Ramaphosa, Zimbabwean President Emmerson Mnangagwa, and two men heavily sanctioned and swimming in corruption scandals, Wicknell Chivayo and Kudakwashe Tagwirei. We have intercepted quotes, we have the whistleblowers, and we are going to expose exactly what a potential 2030 term extension from Mnangagwa means for the streets of Johannesburg. Welcome back to Mzansi PoliScope, your premier hub for razor-sharp South African political analysis. If you appreciate verified facts and fearless deep dives into the political underbelly of our region, please take a quick second to politely tap that subscribe button. We rely on your support to keep bringing you the unfiltered truth. Now, let's get straight into it. Let's start with the official narrative. The South African government's social media accounts scrambled to do damage control. They painted Ramaphosa's unannounced, highly irregular trip to Zimbabwe as a standard working visit. They claimed it was to discuss issues of shared and mutual interest and quickly threw in some economic jargon. They reminded us that in 2025, South Africa exported agricultural products and machinery worth a massive $4.3 billion to Zimbabwe. Sounds perfectly normal, right? Just two heads of state discussing bilateral trade. But in the world of political optics, what you don't see is usually the real story. And the real story here is a political bombshell. Listen to the words of retired Lieutenant General Winston Sigauke Mapuranga. He blew the lid off this entire diplomatic cover-up. He stated, "I have received information that I cannot in good conscience sit on. President Cyril Ramaphosa of South Africa is visiting Zimbabwe. Not an official state visit with full diplomatic protocol, not a SADC summit with a regional agenda, not an AU engagement with continental purpose, a private visit. And the destination after the obligatory Harare formalities is Kwekwe Farm, Kwekwe. No formal government reception, no cabinet ministers lining the tarmac. Ramaphosa went straight from Pretoria to Kwekwe Farm. And who welcomed him? Not the Zimbabwean vice president, not the foreign affairs minister. He was welcomed by the corrupt elite, Tagwirei and his cartel." Let's drop some verified bombshells on exactly who Ramaphosa was sitting with at that farm table. These aren't just regular businessmen. They are the architects of the systemic collapse that drives Zimbabweans into South Africa. First, we have Wicknell Chivayo. This is a man who practically laughs in the face of the rule of law. He was recently embroiled in a massive 570 million rand corruption scandal involving the Zimbabwean Electoral Commission. Leaked audio and financial documents showed his network inflating a government tender by a staggering 235%. Get this, they invoiced the government 23 million rand for a computer server that normally costs just 90,000 rand. South Africa's own Financial Intelligence Center, FIC, found that over 800 million rands was transferred to Chivayo's business accounts. While normal Zimbabweans are struggling to buy a loaf of bread, Chivayo is importing white Rolls-Royces and Range Rovers, bragging on leaked audios that the president calls him "my son." And then we have Kudakwashe Tagwirei, widely known in political circles as the Queen Bee. This man isn't just rich, he is under strict global Magnitsky sanctions by the United States and anti-corruption sanctions by the UK. Why? Because his company, Secunda Holdings, redeemed government treasury bills at up to 10 times their official value. What does that mean in simple English? It means he engineered a scheme that literally crashed the value of the Zimbabwean currency. His actions caused hyperinflation, skyrocketing the prices of basic food essentials. Tagwirei is a man who has allegedly captured key sectors of Zimbabwe's economy, and rumor has it he is eyeing the presidency as Mnangagwa's successor. These are the men our president, Cyril Ramaphosa, chose to share a 1-hour military helicopter ride with. So, why the sudden secret farm visit? This brings us to the explosive revelations brought to light by prominent journalist Hopewell Chinono. Zimbabwe is currently sitting on a constitutional powder keg. There is a controversial plot within the ruling ZANU-PF party to ram through a constitutional amendment bill known as CAB 3. Its sole purpose? To extend Emmerson Mnangagwa's grip on power from his mandated exit in 2028 all the way to 2030. But not everyone in the Zimbabwean military establishment is happy about this. Whispers of a military coup led by Vice President General Constantino Chiwenga were spreading like wildfire. Mnangagwa was cornered. He needed a lifeline. He needed regional backing. Enter Cyril Ramaphosa. According to Chinono's highly placed sources, this entire private trip was a strategic political theater to quash the coup. During a tour of Mnangagwa's Ankoli cattle and fish breeding pools, they walked past the Ostriches. In a politically loaded, jaw-dropping statement made right in front of the delegation, Ramaphosa looked at the Ostriches and said, "Nothing and nobody will remove my elder brother from power unconstitutionally. The owner of these Ostriches will be president until 2030 if parliament says so." Boom. That was the green light. That was the endorsement. Following this, the two leaders vanished into a 4-hour closed-door meeting with Tagwirei and Chivayo. The meeting was so deeply private that even Mnangagwa's own spokesperson, George Charamba, was kicked out of the room. Ramaphosa cemented his stance. South Africa would not support or recognize any military move against Mnangagwa. Now we see it clearly, completely, undeniably, photographically. To my fellow South Africans watching this is the crux of the matter. You wonder why our border control is failing. You wonder why so many Zimbabweans flood our borders, sleep under bridges in Johannesburg, and queue endlessly at home affairs in Pretoria. You wonder why they endure being chased on a daily basis rather than returning to their home country. This is why. Because the political and economic system that drives them out just secured the ultimate insurance policy from the ANC. The ANC continues to treat ZANU-PF as a sister party, prioritizing liberation-era nostalgia over modern-day democratic accountability. The corruption that collapses the Zimbabwean economy, the 23 million rand servers, and the currency manipulation is what empties their supermarket shelves. The constitutional manipulation that extends one man's grip on power is what kills their hope. And our president, Cyril Ramaphosa, just flew to Zimbabwe and endorsed it. Not with a formal state address, but with his presence, with his photograph, with his body sitting comfortably at a Sanctioned Cartel boss's farm table. That photograph tells every struggling Zimbabwean exactly what their suffering is worth to the region's most powerful leader. Nothing. Right now, CAB 3, the bill designed to extend Mnangagwa's term, is facing fierce resistance. Civil society and legal experts are challenging it in the Constitutional Court. Section 3287 of their constitution stands as a democratic firewall against this exact type of term limit manipulation. The people are resisting. The war veterans are watching the scales tip. And into this incredibly fragile moment, Ramaphosa arrives. Not to support constitutional democracy, not to stand with the people of Zimbabwe, not to defend the SADC regional principle that presidential term limits are sacred. He arrives to sit at the farm of the very man financing the term extension. That is not a state visit. That is a deeply compromised endorsement. When Mnangagwa flashes those photographs of him and Ramaphosa to his internal opposition, he is weaponizing our president's visit. He is effectively saying, the region endorses me, Africa endorses me, your resistance is futile. Cyril Ramaphosa did not go to Zimbabwe for you. He did not go to secure bilateral trade that benefits the ordinary South African taxpayer. He went to protect Mnangagwa and his cartel, Tagwirei. And by validating criminal elements like Tagwirei and Chivayo, he went against every Zimbabwean mother who sent her child across the Limpopo River because the local economy was looted dry. He went against the very democratic ideals that South Africa, Nelson Mandela's South Africa, was supposed to champion on this continent. The South African Parliament must ask questions. Civil society must demand answers. The ANC's own membership, who bled fighting apartheid for democratic principles, must look at what their president did at Kwekwe farm and ask, is this what we fought for? Because make no mistake, Zimbabweans will continue flooding into South Africa, not because they want to leave their homes, but because the corrupt system that expelled them just got a photo shoot with the South African president. What are your thoughts on President Ramaphosa's unannounced visit? Do you think the ANC's allegiance to ZANU-PF is hurting South Africa's internal stability? Let's get a debate going in the comments section down below. I read every single one. If you found this deep dive informative and want to stay ahead of the political curve, please do hit that subscribe button from Mzansi PoliScope. Share this video to expose the truth, and I'll catch you in the next analytical breakdown. Stay informed, Mzansi.